This is quite the shock announcement. Feels similar to when Lucas handed Star Wars over to Disney. Now, expect big things because these announcements are usually coupled with news of who the new Bond might be and what the new movie and the plans are going to be in the years to come.
It's another week and another episode of Make That Make Sense, the game show that breaks down the weekly stories shaping the business of media. A wild week in the media universe this week, so let's get right into it. Today's guest is Jonathan Nash. Jonathan is currently the marketing director at DIRECTV. He previously held roles as senior global video marketing lead at Apple, as a senior partner marketing manager at Roku, and earlier in his career, he served as an associate director of brand marketing at 20th Century Fox. He is also a proud USC MBA alumni, so we'd love to have Trojans on the show. All right, let's do it. Jonathan, thanks for coming on Make That Make Sense.
Thanks for having me.
Happy to have a fellow USC Trojan on. It's been a long time since I've been back in LA, so glad to get back to the roots. We have a crazy week in media this week, so should we get to the rules and then get to the show?
Let's do it.
All right. So, quick rule breakdown for our audience. On Make That Make Sense, we go through one headline, one tweet, and one deal in 15 minutes. Each section, meaning the headline, deal, and tweet, will last 3.5 minutes. You'll then have 1 minute to answer each trivia question, and all topics are from the last 10 days, and in this case, just from the last couple of days, or the last couple of hours, actually, in this case. All right, should we go to our headline?
Do it. Yep.
So, for movie lovers, for media industry fans, this was huge news out of the streaming world today. And given your experience at Fox and working on the Bond franchise, you're going to have a really unique take on this. So first, give me your overall breakdown of what this means, given your experience, and then we'll go from there.
And it's hard to do that without looking at a little bit of the history. I don't consider myself a Bond master connoisseur, but I know enough about the franchise, having worked on it for 4 years. This is quite the shock announcement. Eon Productions, which is run by Michael Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, have had control of the franchise since 1961. They've produced 25 Bond films, from Dr. No with Sean Connery to Never Say Never Again. I'm sorry, my mistake. No Time to Die, which was the last entry with Daniel Craig. Only the MCU and Godzilla had made more movies. This is one of the biggest franchises in the history of cinema. And for its entirety, its existence, UA and then MGM had the distribution rights for the Bond films. And then Amazon acquired the rights when they bought MGM back in 2022. And while Bond was the crown jewel of the MGM library, there were guardrails in place via this Eon creative ownership. So MGM couldn't do anything without Eon approval. And this goes back to whenever I was working on the franchise. If I did anything, we'd have to run it by MGM for approval and then take it to Eon. And Eon could kill anything from a piece of key art to a marketing campaign to any kind of distribution plans. So they had full control of the franchise from beginning to end. So this idea that they've made this deal and basically given it to Amazon. While Amazon had the distribution rights, they didn't really have creative control. This is kind of feels similar to when Lucas handed Star Wars over to Disney. Again, one of the biggest movie franchises of all time. And all of a sudden, this huge corporation has basically taken it over. Now, expect big things because these announcements are usually coupled with news of who the new Bond might be and what the new movie and the plans are going to be in the years to come.
And you mentioned another huge movie franchise. What does this deal in particular tell you about the future of legacy movie franchises in the streaming era?
Oh, we've seen it happen with Lucasfilm, with Marvel. I mean, I'm listing off the ones that Disney's acquired, but we're seeing it across the board. The big franchises are just getting bigger. We're seeing movement with Warner, finally with the DC Comics franchises. So we're just going to see a lot more being produced. I don't know. Would it be so crazy to see a Bond spin-off series on Prime Video or something to that effect? Very possible. Like
That would be
these are the things that we never thought would happen and are happening now because we're creating more and more content. We have to feed the beast of these different streaming services.
Well, it'll be super interesting to see what's going to happen to the show, especially creatively, now that Amazon has those rights, as you said. So we can only wait and see. But I assume, as you alluded to, there'll be other major announcements coming in the next couple of days to follow this one.
Yeah.
All right, should we get to our
I
tweet?
think one last thing. I think
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos even tweeted like who the next Bond should be. I think it
Oh,
tongue in
really?
cheek, of course,
Yeah.
but you check he's throwing it out there to the world to see who what our thoughts are.
Well, Jeff always has to get himself into the conversation, so that's not a
Of
surprise.
course. Hmm.
All right, let's go to our tweet. So, at least from all the coverage I've read today about this rumor that Musk is seeking more funding at the same $44 million valuation, people are seeing it as an epic comeback. Does this have anything to do with the improvement of the platform under Musk's leadership, or is it more investor reaction to, hey, look at Elon's other companies, they've increased in value since the Trump administration came in, X is at least that valuable? How do you look at that?
So we're coming off talking about Bond and entertainment, where that's my specialty. This not so much. So I'll give my 2 cents,
Yeah.
and that is I'm inching towards the latter.
Mm,
That Elon's winning right now, whether you love him or hate him. He's making some moves. He's on the winning team. He's getting to do a lot what he wanted to do. And so this feels like getting behind the winning team at the moment. Now, what does that mean for the future of X? I don't know. Um, I always look at companies where they are and where they're going. The social media landscape has been more and more fractured. Well, I think there was a time where it was a little bit more between Facebook and Twitter, and that was kind of it. Now it's X. But now there's Instagram and Threads and TikTok, Parler, Truth, Blue Sky. It just seems a lot more fragmented, a lot more polarized.
mm.
That's hard to doubt, hard to ignore. And so when I look at X, I mean, in terms of different broader social platforms, it's not even top 10 in terms of size.
Yeah.
So it looks like it'll continue to it's private and it's being controlled by the world's richest man, so it's going to live a long life. But how it's going to be in the future, time will tell.
Interesting. Yeah, I think for everybody, it's a very uncertain future for the platform. What is a bold, you said obviously it's not your area's expertise really, but what is a bold prediction that you could give that for something Elon's going to do for the platform given this new round of funding that might be coming? Could that be going into payments? Could that be unleashing a new advertisement model? What do you think that could be?
What I'll give to him is even if there's fewer monthly active users, seems like they're focused on the ARPU, like looking at the user, like the revenue generated per user, and that may be going up. That's very possible. Again, it's private, so we don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but we're seeing is making it more and more relevant if it becomes the go-to platform for updates on the US government and updates from what's happening in mainstream media. We used to look at old and legacy media for these updates, and now they come from social media. And if X is the place to be the source of a lot of kind of key pieces of information, it'll keep it relevant in the next few years.
Well, it'll be incredibly interesting to see. I think most investors are pretty confident that the valuation for X is probably going to go up, given how
Hmm.
much the valuation for SpaceX and Tesla has gone up. But we can only wait and see. All right, should we get to our deal?
Let's do it.
Saudi Arabia has been putting a lot of money into sports and entertainment. How do you think this new deal with the sports streamer DAZN fits into that broader investment strategy that Saudi Arabia has been crafting over the last several years?
I don't fashion myself a sports guy, but I will say this. I worked with DAZN and BN, which is one of their major competitors, when I was at Roku. They're the two, I'd say, dominant global sports services in the market today. And what I'll say is DAZN has always claimed to be the Netflix of sports. It's in 200 plus markets. It's been spending a lot to buy up rights. So there's definitely this. I would look at sports as the final frontier of streaming
Yeah.
and where we're going with. And it's very fractured. It's very expensive, but it's the one thing where people want to watch it live. We've
Mm.
gotten so used to time delay, video on demand, but sports is the one thing. So there's a lot of ad revenue and money to be made on owning these sports, being a part of these sports services, and then owning the rights to a lot of this. So I could see why this makes a lot of sense for the time being.
You mentioned that DAZN has represented itself as the Netflix of sports. What are some difficulties in building out that model? As you said, live sports is its own beast in terms of bringing that to streaming services. Do you think that DAZN will continue to grow? What challenges do you think you could see ahead for the company?
It's also being relevant in this new market. And so it's tough because we're in California. We're in the California/US bubble. So we're focused on American sports like baseball, football, basketball, and so on. We're seeing the major streaming services or the major companies like Amazon buying up the rights of Thursday Night Football. Netflix spent, I think, 150 million on those two Christmas games.
Yeah.
Apple's entered a 10-year relationship with MLS to make soccer a thing in the US. And I worked a lot with on the team to kind of make that happen. But I'm sorry, sports varies by market and interests are local tastes. And so it's going to be a challenge to make it. It's one thing to make Severance on Apple TV Plus or um, something like Cobra Kai on Netflix or
Yeah.
something else that make it into like a global phenomenon. But with sports, it's kind of tough. It depends on the league and the teams and so on. So it's a little bit harder to see how this will be successful, especially when you have several players with deep pockets that want to own the rights.
And this is obviously you can't, there's no way to know it because we're not on the inside here. But Saudi Arabia, one of their other marquee investments in the in entertainment world was Live Golf, right? And they put a
Mm.
lot of their own influence into it. What type of influence, other than just capital, do you think Saudi Arabia's investment going to have on DAZN as a platform?
What I'm seeing, and again, I haven't been following this so much, but from what I can tell, Saudi Arabia is definitely wants a seat at the table. They are investing more in sports. They are trying to diversify their economy and make it more appealing as a destination worldwide, not just
Yeah.
the Arab world or the Muslim world. And so this is the way. It's like by investing and being a part of the zone, investing in sports, World Cup, what have you, it becomes a bit more of a global player. And you're seeing that with a lot of the deals and a lot of the movement they're making to become bit broader, so to speak, as a market and a country. So this feels like it plays into their bigger strategy.
I would agree. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Should we get to the trivia section?
Yeah.
Truth, truths, and a lie. Tell me which one is the
Mhm.
lie. First, Netflix started as a DVD rental by mail service before transitioning to streaming. Disney Plus reached over 100 million subscribers within 2 years of its launch. And Hulu is exclusively owned by Comcast.
Oh, number three is the lie.
Of course, Comcast has a minority stake, but Disney has the majority stake. Go 2 for 2. True or
Mm-hmm.
false? Avatar is the highest grossing movie ever made by 20th Century Studios.
That's true.
That would be true.
Avatar was such a big movie for Fox before the Disney acquisition that it was considered a franchise in its own right, even though it was one movie for the longest time.
Really?
Yeah, there was a whole team, there were hundreds of people focused on how do we continue to monetize Avatar, being that it's one movie, and not
Yeah.
knowing when James Cameron was ready to make the sequel.
To
But it
have one.
happened, and it was great, and it made a lot of money, and now Has a lot on their hands. They're going to open up a piece of the park focused on Avatar. It's becoming the franchise it was meant to be.
Well, sometimes it takes time, but the vision was always there.
Yeah, don't
Jonathan,
doubt James Cameron.
yeah, no, that's a bad bet. That's a bad bet. Well, Jonathan, really appreciate you coming on and breaking down a couple of the breaking headlines in the media world this week, and happy to have a Trojan on as well. So appreciate
Yeah, fight on.
Yeah, fight on. Appreciate your insights, and we'll speak again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you, Eric.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan.